Good day, everybody. This is John Scarborough. I wanted to make a little video here, if I can keep from dropping my phone in this creek. I wanted to show this tree right here and a couple other places. Some of the washout that we've got going on here. And you can see right here where the creek is dropped down just a little bit there. But this is really the major evidence of what's going on here. This is a creek on one of the places that we've got cows on. Cows have been running on this place since it was cleared off. So first of all, when the place was cleared off, the clearing company didn't leave very many trees at all around the creek, which some clearing companies are, I think it's mandatory that they have to do that. I don't really know much about that, but I have noticed that the companies that do that, the health of the creek is usually quite a bit better because there's so much root structure of the trees, basically woods, left around the creek. But this right here, since most of the trees have been pulled away from the creek about 20 years ago, if I understand it right. Of course, you can see there's a pipeline right there. I don't know if you can see that marker, but that's a pipeline. So of course that stays cleared off where that pipeline is. But right here, and probably about that 20-year time, however long the cattle have been here, for sure, this has been washing out. And a lot of people would blame this on the cattle. Now, I do think that management definitely has a big part to play in this. But it's not just that. It's the way that the land was cleared in the first place. They didn't leave the trees that were left that were here. They didn't leave some of them. I'm not against cutting trees or harvesting trees. I think we need to do that for sure, 100%. I'm just saying that I think if you're getting a piece of property cleared and you've got a creek like this, it might be good to put your input in there. Tell them that you want to leave some trees around that creek, or at least if you care about the health of your creek, if you plan to graze animals around here and you want good drinking water that's not full of mud, all of that. I mean, you want the health of the creek, the health of your property. You don't want all your topsoil washing away. My wife grew up right around here. Her and her brother played in this creek growing up, and she said she remembers when this right here, this creek, this little spot right in here, that they could drive across it. So in that amount of time, this is washed out this much, and it washes out more and more. And you can see over here, you can see this tree right here, the way it's been washed out really bad over the years. And that's, I don't blame it on, I'm not blaming it on anything specifically. This creek right here, this gets an abundance amount of water, a ridiculous amount of water. So this is a pretty extent example, but it is a good example for what I'm trying to get across. And that's the way you're grazing your cattle. And then of course, like I said earlier, taking this into account if you're going to have a place logged, make sure you think about the creek. Don't let them just cut all the trees away from the creek. That creek has been used to being held together by that by all that root structure of trees, tons of trees all the way around. So you cut a lot of those trees down, those root structure starts to die, and it starts to take away all that net that used to be there. Now there is a way to hold all of this together if your creek's already been cut away. And a lot of that, I mean, some of this is just going to happen. This is just nature. Some of it is. It's just going to happen the way it is, especially when you get big floods and stuff. This is kind of the bottom. This is where a lot of the water in our area ends up, right down through this creek. It's just kind of how it is. But there is a way to help take care of a lot of this, and that's the way you graze your cattle. If you have cows on your property, and if you're not into a mob grazing system, that's perfectly fine. I do think that mob grazing is probably one of the best things you could do for it, especially at least in areas like this. But at least be mindful of a heavy rotational grazing system. A system, you see this tree, this one died and fell over, and there's many other trees like this that's been this way. And you see this right here. This is from cattle. This little spot there here, this little dip. cattle coming down in here and tearing the creek out. And that's just what cattle do. That's what they, I mean, that's just how they're going to do it. Mostly what they do is there's big straight drop-offs like this, and then the sun can't get down into it and start growing more life down in there. But then they'll create trails like we got over here. You can see across there, they're creating trails to come down, something that's easy for them to get down in there. Whereas if it was a mob, they would come across there and make an even bank. They would knock this bank down and make it even, an even slope, allow the sun to get on it, and allow new growth of things like grass to get on there, okay? So it wouldn't be straight across like that. Now you're getting some moss, but moss won't hold the ground together when you're talking about the amount of water that comes through this creek. Right now it doesn't look like much, but we get some major floods coming down through this creek right here. That's why I figured it was a really good example. And you can see a lot of this kind of stuff is normal, and the water rushes over top of this. It ends up filling up the entire creek, and it comes all the way up. I want to say the water line, the highest I've seen it is probably right about where you see that top limb right there. That one right there. That's a good 6.5, 7 feet off the ground right there where that limb is. I've seen the water up that high before out here. So there's a lot of water that comes through here all at one time. But by taking and mob grazing them through here, you can actually knock these little highs off instead of creating trails, and you create a nice smooth slope. And then, this is the most important key, whether you're mob grazing, rotationally grazing, or whether you just keep them off of it 100%. I don't think that's the best thing to do, but no matter what you do, if you're gonna have animals out here, move them and then let them stay off of that area for 45 to 60 days and even longer in some spots. So like a spot like this, you could take and intensively graze them right through here. You could strip graze them coming through this creek. It'd have to be at the perfect time of year. That's why it's a little tricky to mob graze them in these kind of areas, unless you've got a lot of cows. But you could take them and you could knock all these hills off and make these creeks, instead of dropping straight down, make them slope off, okay? You could do that, but then get them off of it. You could even get them off of it through the entire course of the growing season to let it recover like that. And I'm not talking about your whole farm. I'm just talking about places like this that's really, really bad. I'm gonna try to cross this creek right here. So excuse me for the bouncing. But you can see, I mean, if you don't do something, if you don't keep your cows off, if you just keep them in here non-stop, you're gonna end up with major washouts like these right here. This right here, that is a cattle trail coming down in there. That's something that hasn't been repaired, hasn't been able to be repaired since I started managing this place. But this is that used to be a cattle trail. It is now a major washout. And that's what cattle trails turn into if you just have one or two trails coming through your place. And even some of this. Now, I don't know for sure if those were cattle trails or not, but it wouldn't surprise me if some of them started out as cattle trails. But I know that's what these were. Cattle trails have a tendency of turning into washout, especially when you live in areas like North Louisiana, like we do, where the water, where you have big steep hills and you have a lot of water. So be mindful of the way you're doing that. If you're not going to mob graze them, at least take around your creeks and put some sort of a fence there, whether it's a temporary electric fence, whether you permanently fence it off, however you want to do it. And then where you can control how long they're out there and when they're out there, and most importantly, how long they get back off of it. You can see a lot of this in here. All of this major washout. This didn't even used to be here when I first got this place. This was about a year ago when I first started getting on this place. This wasn't here, but it was so bare in here that it just started happening, and there was literally nothing I could do to stop it. Well, this year, as you can see, it is now full of vegetation and growth. It was not like that. Now, granted, it's weeds. A lot of it's not that palatable, but it was nothing but pure dirt, and this year it would have been nothing but pure washouts. But because of the grazing management, not letting them be in here all the time, this has been allowed to grow up and get some root structure on it. And that way we can keep it from washing out much more. Now, it's still liable to wash out some. But if we can keep this up, then we can keep this from just completely losing all of this and ending up with no topsoil here at all. So this right here is a good example. Over here, you can tell this has been left to recover, this whole little spot. And you can see right there, the grass is growing on top, but down across the wall where it's a straight drop, there's no grass, there's no growth. The sunlight can't get there, the water drops straight down on it. There's no real way for the water to soak into it real well. You just can't support life like that in that straight drop. Like I said, moss you can grow, but it takes a while and it doesn't hold the floods that we get here. It just won't hold it together like grass will. But then over here, you look right here. This is a spot where the cattle was using to come down and then go down in there when they were here. And look at it. Look at the difference there. That's not straight down. It's a slope. It's sloped. And you can tell it is supporting grass way, way better. So if you can get your cattle to come in and not create trails, but instead create an even slope coming down at an angle instead of straight down, instead of a 90-degree drop, you know, if you can create a nice slope like that and get your cattle to do that and then get them off long enough to support some growth, this grass is way better at holding ground together than big tree roots and everything else. And I talk a lot about trees, and I'm not talking bad about trees. I love trees, and I love to see trees intermingled with grass. But so many people, they think that trees are the only answer, and that's simply not the case. In fact, there was reports back before we totally took over the land, and there was Indians and buffalo. There was reports of all up in the trees, all up in the mountains, everywhere that there was trees, there was still grass. First there was the plains that was nothing but grass, and then there were wooded areas. And they were talking about the wooded areas up in the mountains. The buffalo would come up in there during the rainy seasons, and they would graze because there was grass. They were given reports of grass being almost everywhere they went, whether there were trees, whether there were no trees, no matter what there was almost always grass. And it's because the buffalo would come through, and they would take these creeks and keep the 90-degree drops. They would take that away. They would create a perfect slope because there'd be a big herd of buffalo, 3 million buffalo or more, sometimes 7 million buffalo would come through that creek all at one time and create a perfect slope across there. And then growth would come back, you know, and they would run through there. And then, yes, they would poop in the creek, but they would only be there for a day. They wouldn't be there very long. The creek would have a chance to recover, and they would knock some topsoil into the creek. But the alternative is better, because they would create a nice slope there that ends up growing grass back on it, and then it's able to hold together instead of the creek constantly washing that out. So just remember that cattle and grass, they do so much for our landscape. It's just important how we graze them. It's important the way we manage them and how we use them. This is not just good for the environment per se. This is good for your own personal property, for your own farm, and your own future and your children's future. I mean, this, to me, stopping this washout that has happened in a matter of 2 years right here, stopping this kind of thing, is good for us, the farmer. Okay, so we're trying to make a better living here, and if we lose all of our topsoil, we're not going to make a good living here. So anyway, I just wanted to show this, talk a little bit about these washouts, and maybe kind of inform you all a little bit of the things that I've seen, the things that I've worked with here in North Louisiana with these major washouts that we seem to get here, and try to figure out ways to control it. So anyway, thanks everybody. Don't forget to subscribe. And my videos are sporadic, okay? Because I try to just put videos out when I have something good to put out there. So hit the bell icon and then you'll know when I post a new video. I'm not going to post a video on a specific day or a specific time because I want to make sure my main priority is putting a good video out there, putting actual information that you can learn from, okay? It's not getting on a time schedule like a lot of other people seem to be doing, okay? So hit the bell icon. You'll know when I put one out there. Don't forget to subscribe. Like I said, I need help on my channel. I need to grow my channel just in order so that I can keep on putting these videos out here. And comment. Put some comments on there. If you like it, hit the like button. If you don't like it, don't hit the unlike button. No, I'm just kidding. No, seriously though, put some comments on there to, you know, interact. You know, that's what this is about. So anyway, thanks everybody. Have a good day.